Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the CTSC's Black History Makers Series 2024. But before we begin, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the CTSC. The Clinical and Translational Science Collaborative of Northern Ohio is a collaborative among Case Western Reserve University and its affiliated hospital systems. The Cleveland Clinic, Metro Health, University Hospitals, and the Louis Stokes Veterans Administration Medical Center, Northeast Ohio Medical University, and the University of Toledo. We aspire to be a catalyst for high-quality clinical and translational science and transformative research to positively impact the health of those in Northern Ohio and beyond. Today, we're going to do things a little bit different. I'm really excited about this format. It's very fireside chat-like. Let's do it. So we're going to do some introductions in the chat if you'd like to share your name, where you're tuning in from, what you do, and then we'll have a conversation that'll be facilitated by Kimalon Dixon, who I'll introduce in one moment. And, today's Black History Maker is Dana Langford, and then we'll have some time for Q&A from the audience. So let me tell you a little about Ms. Dixon. As Chief of Staff of JumpStart, Inc., Kimalon Dixon strategically aligns operations, programming, and external partnerships to increase the organization's ability to power initiatives driving economic development, entrepreneurship, and innovation in the ecosystem building across Northern Ohio. And then for our honoree, and I don't want to tell too much because she's going to share all this, but Dana M. Langford is a Cleveland native. As a certified nurse midwife and she has a lot of previous experience as a women's health nurse practitioner. Her expertise really initiated and expanded while working in Albany, Georgia, and St. Petersburg, Florida. She returned to her roots in Cleveland, Ohio. While working as a certified nurse midwife and serving on numerous committees, she observed that Black women were not being heard in the discussion of racial disparities in maternal and infant health. She co-founded Village of Healing, a community development organization focused on healing and empowering the village to eliminate social determinants of health and decrease disparities. Under that umbrella, the Village of Healing Center was developed to deliver quality healthcare that meets the social and cultural needs of patients. And that's all I'll share because she's going to share more. So, ladies, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Jaleese. And thank you for this opportunity to chat with a Black history maker in real time. I've been really looking forward to our conversation with Dana. I've heard so much about you. I've heard you on the radio speaking. I've heard you, I've seen your work, I've seen the clinic, and I just want to thank you for all that you're doing to really improve the quality of life for women, particularly Black women in our community. So with all of that, every success story starts somewhere. Can you share a bit about your childhood and any pivotal learnings that help you navigate and lead you where you are today?
So first and foremost, it's an honor and a privilege to be here. It is an honor, first of all, to enter into this conversation with you. So just like you said, you've heard about me. I have heard about you as well in all your work, and I'm grateful for the path that you have led and you continue to lead for entrepreneurs, but in specific Black entrepreneurs in this city. So thank you. And thank you guys so much for considering me to be a Black history maker. When I saw the title, I was like, I'm not quite sure about that, but okay, Jaleese, I'll do it. So thank you guys so much for having me. There's so much, and I think that, whenever you reach a certain point in your life and you look back over what God has brought you through, you are always, reach a point where you're like, oh, that's why he did all of that. Mm-hmm. So I think to bring me to my place that I am now, originally my bachelor's is in sports medicine, athletic training, and it just didn't sit well with me. And I figured that out probably about my third year, and my mom was like, well, you're going to finish this out and then we'll figure out something else later. And so when I finished that degree, I never even took the certification exam or anything because I just knew that's not what God had for me. And so I started working at a women's shelter. And I think that's when my love and passion for underserved women started. And it was at I think it's the Norma Herr Center now. And so I started working with a nurse practitioner. And in that moment, I knew that that's where I needed to be. But even prior to that, going to the doctor's offices myself, being raised by a single parent, I would go in with Medicaid insurance, and I noticed that I wasn't treated how I wanted to be treated and what I thought was respectful even as a teenager. And then my provider at the time, who I absolutely adore to this day, and my family still sees her, there were just things that I didn't feel comfortable telling her as a white woman. And so I suffered from migraines, and it was probably due to the toxic stress that I was enduring as a teenager in my own life. And I just never felt comfortable sharing with her because, you know, in our household, our business is our business, and don't go out here telling our business.
Right.
And so there were just certain things I never shared with her. But I also noticed whenever I went, nobody looks like me except for the people at the front desk.
Right.
And so I thought to myself, what if there are other teenagers out there like me who are supposed to be statistics, are supposed to be pregnant as teenagers, are, you know, supposed to not graduate and are defying all of these odds and meeting all of these goals. And they're seeking healthcare, and there's no one there to encourage them, and there's no one there to push for them. And so in all of that, I realized I wanted to go into healthcare, and I wanted to be that person for teenage Black girls coming through the door that I could share my story with and hope that it would lead them down the same path.
I think that's wonderful. And your story resonates on so many levels with me. You know, I also grew up with a single mom, even though my dad was present, but she was still single and, you know, a primary parent. Also grew up in an underserved neighborhood and always had a justice orientation. Like, that's not fair. That's not right. And I was never one of those kids that, you know, when I was a child, I never knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. Well, I went with the doctor, lawyer, you know, all of that. And so I made organic chemistry, and I did like you. I chucked out a degree in microbiology, and we appreciate that experience for what it was.
Right, exactly.
What it was. And now I'm in economic development, which is so funny. So for you though, as a child, did you ever dream of being something, and what was it?
So I dreamed of being a lawyer.
Okay.
I have a huge mouth. You will probably, as you know, over the city, you know, panel discussions, all of that. I'm the loud talker. I don't need the mic. And I love to debate. And so, and at the time I was like, oh, I want to wear fly suits. I want to wear the 4-inch heels every day. Like this is, which is crazy because now I'm like at work, as you see, in a sweatshirt. That was my dream. So I wanted to be a lawyer.
Okay.
And then I did career day. So I went to Beaumont School. And so I did career day, went to the lawyer's room, and she said that you want to do a bachelor's degree in something else first before you go to law school.
Okay.
And so I thought, okay, let me figure this out. And then there was an athletic trainer. So I said, well, okay, I can do athletic training and then go to law school. And that way I could be an attorney to athletes. So as I'm sitting in the athletic training room, I was like, oh, I could just meet a rich husband, get married, and I don't ever have to work again. So that was my original thought at going to athletic training, which it has not worked out. But yeah, I dreamed of being an attorney.
Understood. But you know, for me, as I hear that, I see a through line with the justice, and I see a through line in the work that you're doing in terms of serving other people with their health. So in equity, the work that you're doing is rooted in equity, right? And really trying to address inequity. So I see a through line. I see that inner lawyer in you, but coming out in a different way. So which is benefiting all of our community.
And I think that I wanted to do it because my family looked different than the traditional white nurse practitioner's family, right? Like I visited jails because I was visiting family members, and I went to court and all of those things. And, you know, even growing up, having family members that were in jail and having to, you know, give them money while there and things like that. That's my story and that's my life. And so for me, I think that probably had something to do with me saying I wanted to be an attorney. Because of those injustices and seeing, you know, that my people were being treated and still to this day completely different than everyone else. You know, the study I always present says that if you're born after 2001, there's, I think, a 1 in 13 chance as a Black male that you're going to encounter, or 1 in 3 chance as a Black male that you're going to encounter the justice system. That's 30%. Of our men that are born after 2001 that are probably going to serve time. That's insane to me. And so, and 1 in 13 Black women. And so to know that that's what we're facing just simply because we're Black and we
Right.
face these injustices is just crazy.
It is crazy and it's unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Truly
Absolutely.
unacceptable on so many levels. I mean, we hear so many terrible statistics around Black infant mortality, Black mother morbidity, so many things. I remember being on a panel discussion maybe 10 years ago, and someone in the crowd asked, why do we have such an issue with health disparities? And I remember being a little bit nervous to say the answer. And I just said, you know what, in this moment, I have to be true to myself. And I said, structural racism.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that, working in Village of Healing now, and even in healthcare in healthcare, everything is so separated.
Right.
And so we don't recognize, and I had an opportunity to present yesterday to the case physician's assistant students, that only 20% of what I do inside of that doctor's office is truly going to affect that person's health.
Right.
It's the 80% that happens outside. So while we have a Black mom that comes in completely healthy, white providers are baffled when they get the high blood pressure, when they get the diabetes, or when they get the preeclampsia. But I'm recognizing what's going on outside. So if 1 in 3 Black men are going to encounter the justice system, it's probably going to be one of those Black men that are in my patient's lives,
Right.
And so I have to recognize that all of those structures are going to be tied together. The inequity in pay, the racism they're going to experience in the workplace, all of those things are coming into play. And then they're walking into my office looking completely healthy as far as the numbers are concerned and smiling, but recognizing that 80% is probably kicking their butt. And so it's my job to figure out how to truly affect that 80%.
Absolutely. When you were talking just now, I remember the song Erykah Badu, Bag Lady. And it's like, that's all the stuff that we carry before we even walk into the doctor's office to get whatever news y'all have for us, right?
Yes,
We walk in there, we got these bags, and I don't know that we have these bags, but I appreciate someone like you who has a lived experience that can translate many different circumstances that can impact the quality of life and health of your patients.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm going to shift us a little bit. I'm going to tickle your brain with this next question. So Oprah Winfrey once said, the answers keep unfolding as your life expands, if you're willing to see things for what they are and what they can be. This quote makes me think about how important it is to be led by our why. What is your why and how does it influence your work?
So there's so many different reasons, but I think first and foremost, my why is because it's me. I am 6 times more likely to die in childbirthing complications than a white woman without a high school diploma, and even a Black woman with a high school diploma. And I did everything, quote unquote, I was supposed to do to achieve the quote unquote American dream, right?
Right.
I didn't have a child. I went to school, got my education. I have a master's degree. I did everything I was supposed to do. And what I've truly done is set myself up for an even more increased disparity in America and in healthcare in America. And so I remember when I first started getting really involved in infant and maternal mortality, there's an Instagram meme that talks about me at the dinner table with my friends, nobody, blank, me. So do you know the infant mortality in America is and the maternal mortality in America is? And so I remember having dinner conversations with my friends while we're out, and they were saying, oh yeah, I heard that. So I don't think I'm going to have another child, or I don't think I'm going to do children. I don't want to risk my life. I don't want to risk my children's life. And then, hearing my friends' experiences in healthcare. And so recognizing not only is this me, this is my friends, these are our sisters, these are our nieces. And being involved as a midwife, I remember the first time I had a morbidity, which was a near-death experience of a patient. And I remember having to walk out and talk to that patient's mother, and she survived. However, she had to have a hysterectomy, so this would have been her last child. And I cried harder than the mother. And I remember the doctor at the time, I was so embarrassed and saying, like, I should have held it together. And he said to me, that mother is going to forever appreciate you, because she knew your emotions were genuine and that you truly empathized with her. And I did. And so I think my why is because this is my community. So why wouldn't I stand up for my community to make sure that we're able to survive and thrive in this? And why wouldn't I try to set it up so that we don't have to fight much harder just to survive? I think, that's so
Yes.
unfair that we constantly are forced and educated on advocacy. And how many white women have to go to their doctor's appointments, and one of the conversations for 15 to 20 minutes is, you might have to fight for yourself. You might have to demand this. You might have to demand that. But that's the conversations that we're having with our patients. And so my biggest why is because this is us. And if we don't do it, then who will?
Right, it's exactly who we. You said something that really hit me hard. You used the word survive. And as Black women, I don't think we ever come out of the mode of surviving, even when we've made and had certain accolades and certain accomplishments. And sometimes it feels exhausting.
Oh, it is
to
exhausting.
Constantly walk into a room, prove yourself, defend who you are, and show that you belong there, and then perhaps try to make a point. It's exhausting.
It is always exhausting.
Yeah, and to think about women who are already in a situation where they are dependent on care, they need care, and they don't have that agency within themselves or someone to really tell them, hey, you're gonna have to fight for yourself. So you're taking someone who's already weary from the battle and telling you got one more big fight. And if you don't win this one, it can mean your life and your baby's life, or both.
Yes. And like I told the students yesterday, you have to recognize that when Black patients are walking into your office, they're walking in, like you said, with all of those bags, right? Like, I'm going through it at work. I'm fighting at work just because I'm Black and I'm a woman. I'm fighting the criminal justice system. I remember going when COVID hit, and we were constantly hearing Black people are dying, Black people are dying. And so when my family members started getting COVID, just praying that they survive,
Right.
And then watching, the racial uprising and all of the riots and all of that, and just constantly having to face and deal with all of that, and going to work feeling like I was broken, and then sitting across the table from my white counterparts who were talking about lunch. And I literally remember at one point wanting to be like, if y'all don't stop talking, like, life is killing us right now, literally. And so recognizing that Black women and Black patients walk into now another system that is literally killing them, and sitting at a table and being at the behest of the person across from them, like, are they going to do what's right for me? Am I going to have to continue this fight in here when I should be able to just say, please make sure I survive?
Please, please and thank you.
Yes, please and thank you. Yes, yes.
So what are you most proud of in your career to date?
I think what I am most proud of is that I am able to trust God and take him at his word. I always tell people when they were like, oh, I wish I could be an entrepreneur like you, or let me tell you something. My story is completely different. Some people wake up like, I decided I didn't want to work for nobody else. And so I left, and that is not my story at all. My story is I was born, I was beat down. I felt like I was at my wit's end, and I started questioning God as to why he was allowing me to go through it. And the only way I can describe it, and I continue to describe it, is feeling like a wet cat backed into a corner. A wet cat is angry.
Yes,
and then if you back them in somewhere when they're already vulnerable, they got to come out fighting. And so I remember first, Tanisha, she had reached, my co-founder and my partner, she had reached a moment where she said she couldn't do it anymore. And I remember saying, we were starting at Village of Healing, and she just could not go to work anymore. She said she was pulling up to work in the car, crying before it was time to get out, crying when it was time to get back in. And so she left in October. And I remember saying to her, if you got to come stay with me, we're going to figure this out, but you need to quit.
Right.
But then when it came time for me, and I knew I couldn't continue to sustain the life that I was living. And so the fact that I was able to trust God at his word and say, I hear you, and I'm just going to have to put this all in your hands because I can't do this anymore. That for me was the most proud moment of my life. And I'm sure my church going family Like, look at you having the face of a mustard seed. And still them questioning, like, you sure you can do this? But I think that for me was my proudest moment, to be able to say, God, I trust you. And I know you're going to see me through this, and I'm going to trust that this is what you want me to do.
Yes, definitely. I love the fact that your faith really kept you on this purpose-driven path that you're on.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a hard path. And we have a question from our audience. And someone wants to know, what advice do you have for someone who wants to be in health equity, Black maternal health and infant mortality space? How do I get involved?
So there's a couple different ways. I would say number one, this is a hard field to get involved with. And I'm going to be real transparent and honest. It's not just hard because of the white folks. It's hard because of us too.
Oh, yeah.
And so
we're not
sometimes,
easy.
yeah, and we are sometimes our own worst enemy.
Yeah.
And so I think that in order to get involved, you have to be passionate. That passion is also going to be misunderstood for anger and aggression and all of those things. But to know I'm in this because I want to make sure other individuals do survive. And so y'all can say what y'all gonna say, but I'm gonna do what I need to do. But there's a lot of organizations in the city that are doing this work and that are involved in this work. I think personally, you know, I used to believe that being a part of predominantly white institutions, you could make the change from inside and sit at these tables and make that change. When it comes to healthcare disparities, I don't feel like that anymore. I think the change is made from the outside pushing in and from the outside challenging. So figuring out these organizations that exist outside, and I think that those organizations coming together, or our organizations that have come together to push back, have been way more powerful. And I was within the system here for 6 to 7 years in that, a little over 6 years for that fight. And now I've been completely out of that system, and we're building our own network outside. And I think we've accomplished way more doing that from outside. So the Black organizations that are outside of the network and outside of the traditional spaces doing the work, connecting with them. And then if you are in these predominantly white institutions, the ones that are giving funding, how do you sit at those tables and say, this funding does not need to go to predominantly white institutions? We've done it. We've proven that it doesn't work. We know that these Black organizations have the outcomes. They have the decrease in the disparities. They're making the difference. How do we give them the funding to actually do the work?
Right. I think that's wonderful. So you mentioned being an entrepreneur. You know, I have to ask you an entrepreneurial question. I'm at JumpStart. That's what we do. We support entrepreneurs to transform entire communities. And as you know, the life of an entrepreneur is filled with highs and lows, risk and reward. What keeps you going during those moments of the deepest lows and the greatest risk?
I think my patience. I really do. I think the patience and the clients that we serve. It's great sometimes to hear your friends or your family or, you know, your colleagues say you're doing an awesome job, you're doing an amazing job. But when I get to help a patient, it's a completely different experience for me. We have a patient who husband lives overseas, and so she was trying to get her husband here. And I wrote a letter, and I was like, girl, this ain't gonna help nothing. But I'm gonna write this letter and we're gonna see what happens. And he was granted permission finally to come from overseas. And so
oh wow,
her gratitude, her the tears in her eyes, the excitement that she had, and just saying, if I would have been anywhere else, they would have never even taken the time to do that. But you understood what I needed and you made sure to do something about it. So I think my greatest reward is being able to serve and being able to serve my community. I think that's my greatest reward.
That's great. You know, I was thinking about that too. We talk about a day that we have no more health disparities. We have no more health inequities. And, you know, we live in a city that was deemed one of the worst for Black women in terms of educational outcomes and almost next to last for health and economic success. What do you think success looks like for Black women from a healthcare provider perspective?
Wow. I think success, so, I think that the healthcare systems are very, very far from addressing the true healthcare disparity crisis. I think there's a lot of conversation, and it's the reason why we started Village of Healing, is because we were exhausted with the conversation.
Yeah.
We were exhausted with attending hundreds of meetings and nothing actually being done. And so that's why we wanted action-driven steps. And so the healthcare system that we see it here in Cleveland, and I think, I've worked in other cities as well, is decades from even addressing disparities, let alone decreasing and then wiping them out. And so for me, success for Black women looks like healthcare that is respectable, that is safe, healthcare where you don't have to advocate for yourself, healthcare where you get to walk into a space and know I am safe here. I will survive going through this, and there will be someone to walk with me through the process and make sure that I understand everything along the process. I think that for me is success as far as being a Black healthcare worker. Another success for me is increasing the number of Black providers that we see across the healthcare spectrum. Right now, less than 3 physicians are Black. Only about 5 to 8% of midwives in this country are Black. Less than 1% of mental health providers are Black, and I think pediatricians are down to about 2%. How do we increase those numbers? We represent, I think, 13% of the population. I should be able to say I want to go to a Black provider, know that I'm getting that type of care from a Black provider without having an 8 to 10 month wait list, because all the other Black folks going to them too, and it's only a few of them.
Right.
So I think success for me as a Black healthcare provider looks like the healthcare field representing the patient population and the Black population.
That's great. So we have some more questions from our audience, which is a great segue to talking more specifically about the Village of Healing. Can you share the services provided by the Village of Healing? And how can, well, I'll stop there, and then tell us what the patient experience is like too, please.
Okay. So originally when we first opened, we just started with obstetrics and gynecology. And what we were noticing, or what I was noticing at the time, I think when I came into Village of Healing, I had already been practicing for about 13, 14 years. So when we started with obstetrics and gynecology, it was just myself originally serving as the midwife. But in that same token, I was getting a new experience in that patients were coming in tearful and saying, I need help. I need to talk to somebody. If you want to do medication, whatever. But I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm all of these things. I don't know what's going on. I'm all over the place. And so having that mental health conversation with patients for me was brand new, because in predominantly white institutions, I don't think that we ever feel safe enough, no matter who the provider is, to bring those conversations to light. And so we provide a different, and I'll talk about that with patient experience, a different experience from when you walk in the door here. And so we brought in mental health, and we brought in mental health in July of 2022. We opened our doors February of 2022, and her schedule became overloaded. Her caseload was supposed to be about 35. At 55, she asked that we stop. So she did from July to October. And so since then, we've added a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, because a lot of patients now are also saying, I want to try some medication. I think this is great, but I want to do some medication. And when we were referring them out, it was a 6-month, 3-month waiting list. And so again, we heard the needs of the community. So we were able to bring in a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. So we did obstetrics, gynecology, mental health. And again, listening to the community, we had patients that were coming in with blood pressures that were extreme and in hypertensive crisis. Diabetes numbers that were through the roof and probably should have been comatose levels. And so when we were talking to them about primary care, they were saying, oh, I haven't seen a primary care and I don't know when, and I'm not going to one unless you can send me to one.
Mhm.
And the ones that we were sending to, of course, were being overloaded. We just talked about that with the
Right.
Black healthcare provider experience. And so we were able to, in January of this year, add Amber Black as our primary care nurse practitioner. So again, we heard the community and we were able to act. And so she was added as a primary care nurse practitioner. So she does primary care. And now we also do pediatrics.
Oh,
So
wow.
right now we are so proud to say that we are taking care of the Black family and we are ensuring that the Black family survives. We
And you
also
know,
offer, and always, I don't know why, because we talked about that 80% outside. We also offer community programming as well for our Black clients and patients. And that looks like our Mother to Mother program, which takes Black moms that are currently going through maternal mental health complications,
mhm.
pairs them with Black moms that are in recovery, and it's a peer-to-peer support. They decide what that relationship looks like. But the goal is to decrease the stigma around mental health and to get them connected to mental health providers. And then we also offer our Black professional women's group. Like I said earlier, I did everything I was supposed to do, and my disparities continue to go up. And so what we wanted to do was to provide a safe space for professional Black women over the age of 30 with at least a bachelor's degree. And we do a sister circle. We meet twice a month. The first time is online. The second time is in person for our Queen's Night Out, where we support a Black business. We bring them in to have a conversation with our clients and the participants. We also support a chef. She comes in and feeds us, a Black chef. And then we also, again, sit with the therapist. And we just dissect the intersectionality of being a Black professional and a woman.
That's awesome. As you were sitting here speaking, I'm like, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
I just had to say that. I'm like, I'm so proud of you because I
Thank
remember
you
hearing
so
about
much.
when you were in the really initial stages
Mhm.
before I came to JumpStart. I was at another organization that, I was at the Cleveland Foundation, and I heard about the work that you wanted to do, and I got super excited then because my background is public health. So as you were speaking just now, I'm like, I'm so proud of you.
Thank
To
you so
really be
much. I
informed
really
by
appreciate
data in the community is really one of the great successes I look at in terms of public health. So thank you for that. Had to say
Thank
it
you
in that
so much.
moment.
I think that, unfortunately in healthcare, we say we inform, they say they're informed by the community, but nobody's ever talked to the community.
Right. Yeah.
And so, we say there's these needs assessments and all that happens. And then you get a patient in a room and they like, I don't need transportation vouchers. What I need is, and so
Right.
we're able to truly, I think, listen to the community, hear the community,
Mhm.
be a part of the community. There's plenty of times where I'm in a grocery store and a patient will come to me like, I called the office today and they said, and I'm like, okay, let me just get my bread here.
Like, can I just get my milk, please? My bread.
Yes, but we are in the community. And I remember Dr. James, who is an amazing infant mortality person in the state of Ohio, saying that the reason they were able to decrease the rates when he lived in Flint, Michigan was because he lived in his community, went to church with his community, he grocery shopped with his community. And I think, that's the goal. And that's how you figure out what the community really needs, because I am the community.
This is true. I
Mhm.
want to make sure we answer these questions, even though I can keep going and keep
Okay.
talking to you about that. So they want to know, how can we help you continue this great work as healthcare practitioners and or researchers?
Okay. Healthcare practitioners, I think, referrals. I'm gonna be honest with you, it's been difficult for us to hire too. And so, when you hear, and I think, I understand a lot of people don't want to leave the safety net of the system. And so we're completely understanding of that. So even if you network with other individuals, like, hey, there's this organization that's hiring. And then we have some healthcare providers that see patients and they're like, I think you should go to Village of Healing. And they're very clear about it. They text me like, I had a patient today, and I think that would be very, very beneficial there. So referrals, things like that. Making sure that, Village of Healing is connected with your organization. We have very good working relationships with Cleveland Clinic, first and foremost. They have been amazing to us. I could have never asked for a better partnership than what I have with Cleveland Clinic to this day. And we are working on our relationships with Metro and University hospitals. But Cleveland Clinic by far has gone above and beyond And I'm super amazed at how they've been able to do that and support us. And so recognizing that if you're in these systems, how do you have conversations with your chairs to say, I think we need to have a working relationship with Village of Healing. Here's why. And maybe you guys can set up a meeting to figure out what does that working relationship look like? Because we're able to do it. I think the success story is with Cleveland Clinic. As researchers, continuing, because we're able to do the work that we're doing. I'm very clear because of the work of City Lab saying and not being afraid to say Cleveland, Ohio is the worst place to live if you are a Black woman, second to last in healthcare. And I remember going to meetings after it came out at my hospital system and them saying, that's not true. And Tanisha and I would be hitting each other up under the table like, do they really have no clue of Black women's experience in these systems? So as a patient, as a healthcare provider in the system, and as a caregiver, I had done all three in 1 year, and my experience wasn't even good. So, I think as a researcher, not being afraid to say it, doing the actual work for the numbers. Another, study that we're able to do our work because of is Project Noir. They're right now doing their Project Noir 2.0. So if you are a Black woman, please, please, please go complete that survey. But we're able to quote them whenever we apply for funding. Whatever we do, Enlightened Solutions has been truly, truly a blessing for us to be able to say, we're telling you our patient's experience, but this is 450 plus Black women and their experience, and we're meeting those needs.
That's great. And I think that speaks to the second question that was asked as well. And thank you, Jalise, for putting the survey link in the chat. So I do want to shift us to ask a little bit more research-focused questions. How do you determine which research studies and trials you'll grant access to your patient population?
So first and foremost, it has to be Black-led. And I'm very clear about that. It has to be Black-led and Black-focused as of right now. I know there are some research that says, we need Black individuals to participate, but right now, for our organization, because it is small, because of our patient population is not as large as as other organizations, mine needs to be Black-led and Black-focused. Right now, we have two that are going on. So we have our own IRB with Cleveland State University, Dr. Heather Rice and Dr. Celeste Collins. And so that's, our own personal survey. And then we also have some work going on with Dr. Karen Scott, who is focused on obstetrical racism. And so my conversations now around research is always, I meet with the individual, and then it has to right now make sense. Because like I said, I don't want to bombard our patients either. And I think that our patients have been amazing because they understand that this is something so different and so unique, and they feel privileged to be a part of it. So right now they're like, oh yeah, I'll complete the satisfaction survey. I'll do this, I'll do that. Right now they're really excited, but what I don't want them to do is to say, dang, if I got to keep being studied and all of this, I don't know that this is worth it. So it just has to make sense. So when we meet with individuals, we ask lots of questions, and we just try to figure out. I even still go to Dr. Rice and I'll say, so I met with this individual, this is what they said, just to talk it out with her, being a scientist, to figure out, does it make sense?
Sure. So as more research focuses on including the community in the process to better address health disparities and achieve equity, what are the ways that healthcare professionals who double as entrepreneurs can help facilitate those relationships and potential collaborations?
With researchers and the community. So I think, here's the biggest thing. I think, first and foremost, connecting. I think, I remember when I was at the City Club, I said, everybody wants to be the chef in the kitchen. And, if macaroni and cheese is my thing, then I'm going to focus on macaroni and cheese. If dressing is your thing, then you focus on the dressing. But when we all come together, we got a delicious meal. Right. And so it's figuring out your lane, focusing on your lane, and then how do we partner and bring the whole community together. One of my board members always says, we have everything we need inside of our community. The problem is that our community is so busy. We've been taught to fight for crumbs that we don't recognize if we all come together, all those crumbs are gonna come together, and now we got everything we need. And so how do we all come together in Black healthcare entrepreneurship, in Black birth, in Black healthcare in general, create our own system and then push back? Because I keep hearing in conversations dismantling the system, but how do you truly dismantle the system? It's hitting them in their pockets. And so the way that we do that is we come together, we build a system, and then challenge theirs and challenge the change.
Right. So I'm gonna ask you, I know that was a heavy question, so I'm gonna make it a little lighter now. A little lighter.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you could travel in time and see the next 5 to 10 years, what will the Village of Healing look like?
My partner is gonna kill me.
Uh-oh.
5 to 10 years, honestly, for me, and I'm gonna go 10 years.
Okay.
Because I think, 5 years, we're opening our second site. That'll be in the Buckeye Shaker neighborhood on Shaker Boulevard. So we're really excited about that. That should be opened in May of this year. Right. We're also working with Youngstown, Ohio right now. And so, and they are the epitome of what it looks like for a city to truly care about their residents. So they are doing a lot of the legwork, a lot of the fundraising, everything. Mayor Tito Brown has been amazing, Aaron Bishop. And so we're working with them. So hopefully that third site will be coming along soon.
Wow.
So I think that's the next 3 to 5 years, mastering that. 10 years for me, and my partner, Tanisha, hates me for this, but 10 years for me looks like a Black hospital in Cleveland.
Wow.
It looks like a hospital that is servicing the community, that is similar to, and I never asked you your patient experience, so I want to make sure I do that too.
Okay.
That is similar to the patient experience that happens at our site in a much bigger conversation. I know I talked to Jasmine who's the CEO of Birthing Beautiful. And so, they are opening their birth center. And I told her, I said, my vision, I grew up in Cleveland, and I remember when I think it was Mount Sinai, and all the Black folks went to Mount Sinai. But what does that look like for us in the future? And so for me, that's my vision, and having a birth center even in that and outside of that. But it's a hospital that's a bigger version of Black providers caring for Black patients. It is also a pipeline for Black students into healthcare fields, working with the schools from elementary up, to let them know that this is achievable, it is attainable. I don't care what your background looks like. I don't care what you go home to. We're here to support you. We're here to mentor you. And we're here to make sure that you are retained, graduate, and practice in this field. And so I think for me, that's 10 years down the line. The patient experience, why that is so important is I think, our patients walk in the door and are able to, like you said, put their bags down. And it's the first time they've been able to do that in healthcare, and they get to do it because the first face that they see is a Black face that is welcoming, and that's our office coordinator, Val. But even from there, there's a bright yellow wall that says, "We all we got," that you get to see. And I remember one of my grant writers trying to change it to be grammatically correct. And I told her, don't you dare.
We're all that we have.
And I think it was like, we are all we got or have. Like, don't you dare. It is we all we got. And it is very specific for that reason. Each room in our center is named after a Black person in history with a paragraph to define that Black person and what they've done for history. So each room is a history lesson. We have a complete wall of Black art that is all local Black artists and donated to the center. Each of our exam rooms are very colorful, down to our red exam table where patients take selfies on the exam table.
Oh my goodness.
and tag Village of Healing in their mauve gowns. And so it is just a completely different experience. There's a Black patient care assistant, Gail Sanders, that's going to come get you and walk you to the room for your Black nurse to come in and have a conversation you, and then round it out with a Black provider. And so it's a completely different experience. And like you said, it's able to open up, I'm able to put that wall down. And then when I share my experiences, I think, a lot of us, because we've created this safe space, even the employees share their own personal experiences to, so that the patient knows this isn't just you. This is what we go through. And so we're here to help you get through it.
Sure. If I could just offer some perspective to the question around what could providers do that aren't in the Village of Healing and want to support your work, I would say this: allow patients to enter and not feel judged. When we talk about safety, a big part is feeling judged, because we are exposed to the same information that researchers are too. And I think that sometimes when you have a patient coming in, maybe they're from a lower economic status, they have Black or brown skin, their geography might be one of the neighborhoods with the zip codes. We know all these things, right? But don't make them feel judged. Have a judge-free zone. Create that safety to be able to share, hey, I don't feel good. I have migraines. I'm feeling depressed. I feel that in itself, if you can align with the work that you're doing, you might not be at Village of Healing, but can we be Village of Healing minded? I'm just saying, you might not have the mauve gowns and the red table and the beautiful purple wall.
No, I agree. And then you also have to be careful. In the room, you might portray one thing, but when you walk out that room and you enter the room with other providers, what you say. Because what happens is you taint other providers who are now carrying their judgment and feeling okay to carry their judgment into the next room. So I even know in my experience working with individuals where patients was like, oh, I really like so-and-so, but then I'm in the room with so-and-so in the back and I didn't heard the comments and things that they make. And that translates down and it taints other individuals' minds. And then that's where that bias and prejudice and all of that comes in. So making sure even in your conversations with other individuals and other healthcare professionals to make sure that you're judgment free and that you challenge. When they say something, that you challenge it just to say, so here's what I heard you say. I've gotten so good at that. And I'm like, so here's what I heard. And they're like, well, no. I'm like, well, that's what I heard. And so having those conversations to challenge back and forth. But I completely agree. Everybody cannot come to Village of Healing. I would love it, but everybody cannot come to Village of Healing. And so making sure we're taking this environment or these conversations. And, right now, like I said, some of the hospitals are very open to having us come in and have the conversations. Some of the schools, Case, like I said, their PA program yesterday brought us in to have the conversation and want to continue us coming in and have that conversation.
Right. So you mentioned one of my other favorite Black history makers, Jasmine Long, CEO of Birthing Beautiful Communities. Can you tell us about your partnership with Birthing Beautiful Communities? And maybe for those who don't know, maybe a little snippet of who BBC is.
So I think she's next week's Black History Maker. So y'all make sure y'all tune in for Jasmine. But Jasmine is the CEO of Birthing Beautiful Communities. Birthing Beautiful Communities is an organization that is focused on perinatal support. And that means support for pregnant and postpartum moms. And they connect you with Black doulas who are able to offer you support. That support looks like going to your appointments with you. They also offer classes, which I teach some of their classes. I teach some of their patients or their clients, along with their doulas. And so they offer those supports. They offer mental health support through classes. I think one of their classes that they offer is Breathe, I've heard, which is simply amazing. And so they offer that support during your pregnancy, in your labor. That doula is there and present with you to advocate for you in the hospital systems. And then they're there to help you postpartum as well. And so they are a wonderful support service for Black moms. Our partnership is one that is organic, one that was automatic and necessary. What we know from data is that Black midwives and Black doulas work. And so why not have a team-based approach where we're making sure that Black midwife, that Black doula, and that patient are all working together in communication, and figuring out the best way to make sure that we're meeting the patient's needs and not, again, just in that 20%, because both BBC and Village of Healing affect that 80%. So we're always talking, working through things to figure out how we can also meet those 80% needs. It is so organic. Verna, one of their doulas, and myself actually went to a corner once to talk to a homeless mom who was hiding her pregnancy, to try to bring her in for support and care. So it's automatic. It's sisterly. It's one that I am gracious and so proud to be a part of that partnership. And we finally have national backing and national dollars and research that is being done to show that it is very authentic and necessary for our community for this to work. And so Creating Healthier Communities has given us a grant to work together to show that this is the way that healthcare should be going. And this is the national model of what it should look like moving forward to decrease disparities and improve outcomes.
Awesome. So we have time for maybe one more question. I'm going to turn back to Jalise, but before I do that, here's my question.
Okay.
And I just have to say, I told you I'm so proud of you. I'm also inspired by you. I'm in awe of you and
Thank
your
you
work.
so much. Thank you. I really, truly appreciate that.
Thank you. And it's been wonderful to speak with you in real time with a history maker in real time. What do you want your legacy to be, Dana?
Wow. What do I want my legacy to be? My biggest legacy is I just want to be a good ancestor.
Ooh.
I want the people that come after me to be able to say she was an amazing ancestor. I had the opportunity to visit the slave dungeons in Ghana, and that's what changed my life. And when I came back, I told Tanisha, like, we out. We starting Village of Healing. But in that moment, in those dungeons, I had an opportunity to speak with ancestors, and to look up and see that point of no return, to be in rooms that were dark and damp, to watch the hole that my female ancestors had to use when they were on their cycle and to use the bathroom, and the dungeon where they kept the misbehaved, enslaved women, which were just the ones that fought back, right? And I know I would have been in there.
I wouldn't have made it. I probably would have jumped in the ocean. I tell people that, like,
I know.
I'm
You're
one more than the ocean.
Yeah. But to have that conversation with them and to hear them, and to be able to watch and witness and be a part of their journey, it was only right for me to make sure that these great ancestors I paid tribute to do the work. And I think that my legacy is I just want to be a great ancestor.
What can I say? You are already.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kimalon. I really sincerely appreciate this conversation. This has been amazing, and especially with you, like I said, because your name also speaks for itself. So it's just been great to have this conversation with you.
Thank you so much. Jalise, I'm going to turn things back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Kimalon, for being our moderator and just sharing so much love. We really appreciate it. So I'm going to share my screen again to tell everyone about what's coming up next, but just a virtual round of applause, real life, real time. Dana Langford, thank you so much for being today's CTSC Black History Maker.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And this won't be the last time we engage. You can promise that. So who's next? Next week, we are honoring Kimberly Aller-Sears. She is the co-founder of the Earth app. That is the only app where you can find prenatal, birthing, postpartum, and pediatric reviews of care from other Black and Brown women. So that's Wednesday, February 28th from noon to 1 on Zoom. What can you do today? You can schedule a ready consultation at spark.case.edu. You can sign up to attend future programming and join our listserv and review CTSC DEIA resources. Thank you so much for joining us. And I did put a link in the chat to our Black Maternal Health Equity Summit. We're fortunate to have Village of Healing as one of our wonderful stakeholders, and we would love to have you in the room. Admission, registration, food, etc., parking is complimentary thanks to our generous sponsors, and we hope you'll head over to the site, learn more, and register today. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, I guess we are done. Thank you so much, Dana. I'm sure we'll see. Let's stay connected if we can.
Absolutely.